quite a few years now, I've found myself drifting away from that clinical perfection of the digital high-resolution CMOS sensor in favour of a more organic, if that's even the right word, sort of look and feel. It started when I noticed the difference between the images of the CMOS sensor and the CCD sensor, and found that I much preferred the way the old Nikon D70 with its CCD sensor rendered colours, and the quality of the noise didn't take anything away from the images. In fact, if you were converting to black and white, it actually added to the aesthetic. So I'm always on the lookout for fun cameras with these CCD sensors, and I recently added another one to my collection, the Canon Powershot G10. So yes, this is a point and shoot, and it has a super small sensor in it, but it's a 14.7 megapixel CCD sensor, and the images straight out of the camera look awesome. So today I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I'm going to walk around, I'm going to get my shots, but instead of just showing you the edited RAW files, I'm going to show you the JPEGs that come straight out of the camera, as well as the RAW files, so that if you don't want to edit, you know what the JPEGs look like, but if you do like to edit, you know what is possible with the RAW files. Right, so let's go through how I've got the camera set up real quick, and then we'll get into some actual photography. So I'm shooting RAW plus JPEG in manual mode, and the ISO is set at its base, which is 80, and it'll probably stay there for the most part, but I'll get into that a little bit later. There's a reason for that. AF frame is set to flexi zone. AF mode is set to single. Now this camera has image stabilization, so I'll have that set to continuous, which is right there. And that is pretty much it for my settings with regards how I'm shooting currently. I've got it set at f4, which when you zoom into 140, this has a full frame equivalent lens of 28 to 140. That goes to f4.5, but it's thereabouts. At the moment it's quite dull, so I'm at 1/250th of a second. That's gone up as high already as 1/800th of a second, so that's going to fluctuate a little bit, but yeah, that's the basic settings. So now let's get into some pictures. Okay, so ISO performance on this thing is as you would expect from a camera this old with a sensor this small, but it's not terrible. Up to about 400 ISO, the images look pretty decent, and if I was converting to black and white, I might even push it as high as 800 ISO. Beyond that, the images start to fall apart pretty hard, so this is definitely not a low light camera. However, you stick this thing on a tripod, keep the ISO low, and shoot some longer exposures, and the images actually are pretty nice. The ergonomics on this thing are pretty decent. I've got fairly large hands, and despite this being a very small camera, it doesn't feel awkward to hold or like I'm going to drop it. It has this nice little grip on the front and this ridge on the back, which feels sort of perfectly placed for my thumb. On top of this, it has some cool dials for exposure compensation and ISO, and the mode dial up here on top of the ISO dial. You've got a simple button layout on the back of the camera with this scroll wheel to change aperture and shutter speed, and all in all, it feels pretty good to use. Now this thing, despite it being small, is no lightweight. It actually weighs in at about 350 grams. Now for comparison, that's about the same weight as the Sony a6000 without a lens. Right, so there you have it. That was the Canon Powershot G10. And if you want to see how this compares to a DSLR from around the same era, maybe check out this video next, and I'll see you in the next one.